Good afternoon. Welcome at the first official live broadcast of OSM Tv. Our guest in the studio is Professor Anmari van der Westhuizen. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Marius, and thank you. I'm very honored to be your first guest of this newly OSM TV channel.
Welcome. So let's go. The first thing that I would like to know from you is why did you choose the cello as your instrument and how did it all happen? As I told you before, during the international cello competition, UNISA string competition, let me rephrase, you were in all tabloids of Afrikaans women magazines. And if I remember well, there was a statement that you made of how you started with the cello and why.
Yes, Marius, thank you. I grew up in a music family with my father being a conductor of a choir, a student church choir at the University of Stellenbosch. And so I started with piano lessons, and my brother, who is 7 years older than me, he played the flute. And so Mary Kriege, a leader of an orchestra in Stellenbosch, took a group of children to the South African National Youth Orchestra course in Johannesburg. And they left by train, so we took him to the train station. And I, as a little girl, just wanted to get on this train with him. It seemed like lots of fun. And then Mary Kriege said to me, Anmari, you have to learn an orchestral instrument if you want to join us on this train trip. So, and then we went home, and it happened to be that my father's third instrument was the cello. And there was still a cello up in the cupboard that he took out for me, and I just played for fun. And then later on, in this very same orchestra, there was a cellist playing along with us. Her name was Leonore Ehlers. And I went to her and I said, who can teach me the cello? And she said, I can. And so it happened that she was my first cello teacher.
At what age was that?
I was 10 years old.
10 years old. So it was in a way relatively late if you compare to people who start string instruments today.
Yes, it was quite late. As I said, I started with the piano. I had lessons with my father always before school started, from 7 till 7:30 in the morning, every morning. And I also played the recorder. So cello, I started late, but I had other music lessons before.
Okay. I'm going to share something about your CV to our viewers, just the outlines, and then you can fill it in with specific highlights, more information, and things that you deem to be necessary for that. So I remember, as I said, I know your CV quite well. I once told you I was your biggest fan, and you lifted your left eyebrow and said, was. So I'm still indeed. Anmari started her tertiary education at the University of Stellenbosch at the music department. She completed her studies under the tutelage of Legetti, and she completed her B.Mas degree magna summa cum laude, and then she continued with her studies with Legetti when you also completed the B.Mas honors degree, also cum laude. And then you continued your studies in Salzburg at the Mozarteum under the former lecturer of Legetti, not true, Professor Heidi Litschauer. Then you completed your studies there. It was still before the application of the Bologna process. What was the fancy name during that stage? Concertdiplom?
No, that was the Grosses Diplom.
Grosses Diplom. And you can later fill us in about in between, and then you continued your studies at the Hochschule in Köln with Professor Maria Kliegel. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of your artistic highlights, specific highlights during your studies, special concerts, anything like that. I mean, there was a whole list on your CV. I tried last night to memorize it, but I think I will give it back to you. You will know it better than I.
Yes, thank you, Marius. I was very privileged to have received master classes while I studied in Stellenbosch from Professor Heidi Litschauer. And I always dreamt of going to study overseas. But as I was good friends with Pieter Schoeman, as he also grew up in Stellenbosch, I wanted to go to America. and we both went together to Interlaken. We both played in the World Youth Orchestra in Interlaken. So I was invited by Professor Lynn Harrell to go to Los Angeles. But at that stage, I was first year, and both me and my parents felt, let me first finish my degree at University of Stellenbosch. And then came Professor Heidi Litschauer to give master classes at Stellenbosch, and then I was invited to go to Salzburg and playing in the South African National Youth Orchestra, also having Gérard Korsten as a conductor. I chatted to him because he also studied in the States and in Europe, and he highly recommended me rather to go to Europe. So I've chosen to go to Salzburg instead.
The tendency these days is more and more that youngsters go at a very, very early age, 14 years. I think Ansel Gerber left for Spain, where she studied under the well-known Russian pedagogue Alexander Fodorchenko at the age of 14 in Oviedo. UAS, Erasmus van Bloemfontein, recently left to study in Interlaken. What is your take on that?
I think it depends on each individual. I was very glad that I finished my degree in Stellenbosch first before I went to Salzburg. There are several reasons for that. I could only concentrate then after my degree only on cello playing mostly, and I didn't need to complete other subjects in German. That was a foreign language at that stage for me. So so it was mostly playing at Salzburg, and all my other subjects were done already. And then also when you finish your degree first in South Africa, you have more postgraduate scholarships available. So financially, it was much better. And during my studies at University of Stellenbosch, I also competed in several competitions, like the SABC Music Prize competition or the UNISA Overseas Scholarship competition, and that all added the prize money, all added to help me to go and study abroad.
Okay. So did you receive also a scholarship for our future students just from Salzburg itself, or did all your monies for your studies were you collected here in South Africa?
All my money came from South Africa, from prize money, because in Austria the tuition fees were far less than I paid actually for university fees in South Africa at that stage. It's much cheaper to study in Europe, in Germany or in Austria than it was in South Africa. And the States is very expensive.
Yes.
And during my stay in Salzburg, I was very surprised. I was 2 weeks there and I started to play gigs and concerts. I was invited, so I earned money there to live from.
How many years did you study in Salzburg? 4 years?
3 years.
3 years. And then you completed your qualification. You carry at the OSM quite a few hats, if I may use the Afrikaans expression. So maybe you can give a synopsis of all your roles at the OSM, apart from being the cello lecturer.
So firstly, I'm appointed here to play cello in the Odeion String Quartet. And that is really my first love, is to do chamber music. So it is an amazing job that we have here. And we are the only quartet in residence appointed at the South African University. So it is really a great privilege. As I tell everyone, I've got actually the best job in the whole world. Playing in a string quartet, teaching cello. I love working. I have a passion for the youth. So I I took over the Odeion Sinfonia from Derek Oxe. And that came from where at UCT, at the University of Cape Town, where I conducted the UCT string ensemble that I founded there. So I love to give back for what I've learned overseas. I would like to give it back to the youth, and because that's the only way we can go forward and advance.
Then you're also the vice conductor of the Free State Youth Orchestra, true?
Yes, I'm the associate conductor of the Free State Youth Orchestra. I stand in for Alex Hawkins, who resides in Cape Town, but he can't be here all the time in Bloemfontein. So times that he's absent, I can stand in for him.
The orchestra. Okay. And then you're also the head of the string quartet.
Oh, yes.
What's that title?
Yes, that is it's quite a responsibility to also find concerts, but we all members of the quartet, use their connections and find concerts, but also the administration. The university requires a lot of paperwork, and so I'm responsible for that.
In the last years, the String Quartet had also a wonderful initiative. You first had a string chamber music workshop. I think that was about 3 years ago. And that was in collaboration with Louise Lansdowne, or shall I say Dr. Louise Lansdowne, at the Birmingham Royal Conservatoire and her students. And the year after that, you initiated, in collaboration with Samson, your colleague, the Fitzroy Quartet, and I think they're also hailing from Birmingham, if I'm not true.
Yeah, it was a recommendation also from Louise Lansdowne, so that is a great connection for us to have her, and the Fitzroy Quartet was a young upcoming quartet who is really doing very well now. They already won a few prizes also at quartet competitions. And I just felt, as we are the only string quartet in residence at the university, we should promote string quartet playing. So the participants, we had 32 participants, and we formed them in 8 string quartets. And each group was given a work to prepare for the workshop, and they had tuition from each member of both string quartets. And
every was ended with a nice chamber concert, I remember.
Yeah,
really
each student group got a chance to perform their work in front of the audience. And then we also collaborated with the Fitzroy playing Inescu octet or Mendelssohn octet and other bigger chamber music works. That's not always possible with the numbers we have in Bloemfontein.
Yeah. In addition, I think it's also wonderful because the Fitzroy are just a few years older than our own students. So it's a very powerful junior expert role that they play for our students. You know, it's one thing to be exposed to a master, but if you see a person or two just a few years older than you exceeding, it's a complete different exposure. And that's what I really respect about that. And then in 2019, you presented the first intensive masterclass series by your previous mentor, or current mentor still, Professor Maria Kliegel, which is also very nice to attend.
Yes, that was, it's for South Africans very expensive to go to Europe or to visit Europe with our rand and euro exchange rate. So it was great so that the international artists come and visit us here. So it's also a great connection for our students. And so everyone loved the master classes with her because she's a great teacher. She was also a pupil of Janos Staker, who said, I cannot perform without teaching, and I cannot teach without performing. And I must say that is very much for me the same. I love both teaching and performing.
And it's, of course, a kind of scholastic extension of your own school, because Maria Kliegel were your last lecturer, and then students of our own conservatory, apart from all the other participants, you know, it's an extension of that same scholastic method, not true? It's not a complete different technique or in dissonance with what you are teaching.
Yeah. Now, I once had a very nice chat with Professor Maria Kliegel about different schools. You get different schools, but she said, and that is very true, you can take from every school a bit and make it actually your own school. So what I appreciate from Maria is that everything is natural, a way to fix mistakes or fix things that doesn't go right. She can fix it very naturally, so you feel comfortable. It's nothing artificial, I wanted to say. It's and that's what I appreciate of her, and her attitude that I also inherited is to ask first, what does the music want? And then you're going to look for ways in your technique to achieve that musical phrase like that, or shape or sound. And yeah, so that is for me still very fascinating, and that's why I love practicing.
What I would like to ask about that, and please correct me if it's not a correct observation. I think about 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, people were really fixated with their scholastic background, and I think that's still current of the Russian school. You know, it's the Russian school and it's the Russian school only. Okay, it's a fantastic school. But quite often I get the idea that most of those students are playing exactly like their masters. And what I observed from you, when you played with under the auspices of Heidi Litschauer, you had a certain sound, and that sound was quite current of many of her students. When I heard you 10 years later, it was a complete different ball game. You had this full round Brahms sound from top to bottom. You know, it's like a singer that go into the higher tessitura, and you kept that resonance from top to bottom. And that's not at all how she plays. And once I heard at a recital in the Concertgebouw, in the small recital room, one of the previous Korean students, and she played again also different. So my observation is that she is not trying to make imitations of herself, but she really investigate in each individual so that they bring out their own sound and own talent within their playing. Is it a correct observation?
Absolutely, Marius, and that is what I love about Maria. She brings out your natural feeling, your abilities, and I think that is a sign of a great teacher, to be able to do that. And still, that fascinates me is her musicality. I mean, how she phrases and how she, but her sound is just one of the most beautiful things for me. So that was definitely an inspiration for me to also to have such a sound. I don't have a Stradivarius, but anyway.
Yeah, well, you never know. The other thing that I would like to ask you is what cello repertoire really inspires you?
At the moment and during lockdown, I just love to play the romantic cello concertos. So everyone, the Dvorak, Sanson, the Elgar, the Rococo variations. I just love the romantic repertoire, where I can really experiment with different vibratos for my expression and so on. But it's not only romantic. I also learned new repertoire. For example, South African works by Hendrik Hofmeyr. He wrote a sonata for cello and piano that a few years he just handed into my hands and said, have a look, but you never get time to have a look. So I learned that sonata. And also he wrote a solo piece that I only got to learn last year when I attended the Artscape competition. Or the National Youth competition, it's called now, sorry. So there was a cellist who played variations on the Africana Nina Nana that he wrote, and it's beautiful work. So
I've never heard the work.
Yeah, and it's actually, he said it's originally written for violin solo, but he transcribed it on someone's request for cello.
And you have a recording of it. I would love to hear it.
I don't have a recording, but I've learned it now. Yeah.
Okay, okay, but we must make a call to Hendrik. Maybe he has an existing recording of you playing. Okay, it will be very interesting to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, that brings me also, Marius, to the time that when I lived in Vienna, and I lived for 5 years in Vienna in Austria, and I was part of a string quartet called the Köln String Quartet, and we mostly performed contemporary music. We recorded string quartets that was just now fresh out of the oven, so to call. And we worked with the composers because they all was still
Which is
alive. We did
rich.
the first recordings of string quartets for the radio station of the Austrian radio station. So that was also a fantastic experience to have. And so I was very involved with contemporary music, very avant-garde music.
Don't you miss it?
Sorry?
Don't you miss it?
I must say, after you've done only contemporary music for so long, you do miss playing just the regular stuff, your classical repertoire. But I was invited by the Austrian Composers Union, it's now already 12 years ago, just to play a cello solo concert of contemporary music. And all the pieces were written after 1980. And it was quite tough, just me on the stage, alone, sitting and playing contemporary music. There's no pianist to join you, no other musicians, so you were very lonely. But and that also made me think of that inspired me to write my doctoral thesis, then to compile a catalog and to write on solo violoncello works written after 1980.
Okay, okay. Do I dare to say that you are also specifically fond of Shostakovich and Brahms? Whenever I see you playing Brahms or Shostakovich, I get goosebumps.
I'm glad. Yeah, no, I love Brahms. Brahms is one of my favorite composers, and definitely the cello sonatas. And I would have played the violin sonata that Brahms actually transcribed himself in April before, and yeah, unfortunately it was cancelled due to the lockdown. And but that's also a beautiful sonata. It's in G major for the violin and in D for the cello.
Okay. Have you ever played the Shostakovich First Cello Concerto?
Yes.
You have? Indeed.
Yes, I played it while I was studying in Cologne with Marius Kliegel. I learned the concerto.
Okay. I have a special request for my birthday next year, and there's some dollars involved. I want you to recite for me the first cello solo work by Legetti. Do we have a deal?
Okay, I've got the music.
It's beautiful, eh? Isn't it magnificent?
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Good. Then I just want to come a little bit back to which I call the scholastic psychosis. As I said, I think we see more and more that people integrate different scholastic pedagogies. I think especially if somebody like your colleague Estelle Reves, she also did 50% of her studies at Maria and then continued at Jérôme Pernod, or was it the other way around?
It was the other way around.
Okay, and I really think that works. Last night, in preparation for this interview, I read about Janusz Starker and where he started. It was quite interesting. I didn't know that he was Jewish, and he started already at the age of 5 playing the cello, and he had his first pupils at the Liszt Academy in Budapest at the age of 8. He had a class of 5 cellists. And I just want to look here in my notes. He studied under another Jewish person by the name of Adolf Schiffer. And Adolf Schiffer again started studying under David Popper. And David Popper started studying by another Jewish person, Julius Goldenman. It's quite interesting.
Very interesting. And to really keep up your technique, Popper is amazing. The studies, the pieces that he wrote I try to play every day a bit of Popper.
So he's indeed Hungarian by nationality. I didn't know.
Hungarian.
It's a strange name. It doesn't sound very Hungarian. David Popper sounds, I don't know, just different. It's quite interesting.
But if you think how old he is and how long ago he lived, I mean, the stuff he wrote for the cello and the technical requirements, I mean...
Also in style, it's just really progressive. If you think of him and so forth. Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's really an interesting perspective. I want to ask you about your visit. Last year, you were invited to join the retirement concert of Maria Kliegel in Köln. And I think you had a celebration or a festive concert, and you actually also met her twin sister, who is also a violist, I believe. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience? How was the concert structured? What happened there?
Yes, Maria retired. I think is it after, I'm not quite sure how many years at the Hochschule of Cologne. In Germany, they have to retire at the age of 65, although she's still busy teaching there, but because she has to finish the pupils or students that she took in when she was 65. So she's there for another 3 years. I think until 70 she will teach there.
Okay.
And so it was actually Estelle Rivage who had the initiative to celebrate her career and her many years of teaching at the Hochschule of Cologne, and try to get as many of her ex-pupils, say alumni around the world together. And then there was a compilation of a concert of many cello works, cello ensemble works, and also Maria played with a pianist. And but because I came from South Africa, I couldn't join I wasn't there in time for the rehearsals beforehand. So they just broadcasted the interview of me on a big screen there in Cologne, what I had to say about Maria Kliegel.
Okay. Do you still have that recording? It's something you can actually broadcast.
It's on YouTube.
Really? I'll find it, and then we put it on our OSM YouTube channel. Definitely. That will be something really special. Can you tell me more about this wonderful event that you were invited to earlier this year? It was supposed to take place in the Disney Hall in Los Angeles, and all the biggest names were supposed to assemble there, cellists, and you were part of this group. What was the event about? Unfortunately, of course, it was cancelled due to COVID-19. But what was the whole idea about the event, and how was it supposed to be executed?
The cello, the instrument cello, they have a world congress, but they call it the Piatigorsky Cello Congress. That's it's only held every 4 years at the University of Southern California in the USA, in Los Angeles. And and I always dreamed of going to such a congress where you can see all the world-renowned cellists together. And this would have been, I can't remember now, but over the period of 10 days, you would have had 40 events, 27 master classes, and the rest were all concerts. And I was looking forward to go to every event. And I was also chosen because they say you can send in a recording of yourself, and then they choose people to join in the gala evening in the cello ensemble. And I was chosen to play in this ensemble, for example, Villa Lobos, Johannes number 8 with the soprano, to play in the Disney Hall where the Los Angeles Philharmonic is situated.
Okay. Yeah, it's a pity. Do you think they will reschedule for next year?
I don't know if they will reschedule for next year, but maybe it's only going to take place again in the this year was only skipped, I think, in 4 years' time, because it's a huge event. And it's also to get all those famous cellists in their scheduled time to be able to come. And,
yeah, that's quite a process.
So it's quite a process, and it's a fascinating, huge festival. I was just, when I saw the program, I couldn't believe you can have so many concerts.
Good, fantastic. So I want to thank you for your time. It was a very, very interesting conversation. I'm sure our viewers also enjoyed it. I asked Anmari now to end with a little recital. The last thing is we still have a vacancy or two for a talented cello student. So if you want to come and study at the OSM, please join us. Join Anmari. She's an exquisite pedagogue, and it will be a wonderful opportunity to study here at the OSM. So we really hope to hear from you. You can send me an email, coetzee@ufs.ac.za, or you can find Anmari's details on the webpage or on our Facebook page and contact her directly. We'd love to have you here. So Anmari, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marius, and thank you for your time and for your initiative. Wish you all the best. I just thought it's not going to be a huge recital.
No.
As I practiced during lockdown, all sorts of romantic concertos, I thought I will just play one of my favorite variations of the Rococo variations.
Great.
It's variation number 6. After dramatic cadenza, this beautiful, slow and tender variation just comes before the very last virtuoso variation. So I hope you enjoy.
Again, it is highly appreciated. And to our viewers, we will soon have another guest on OSM TV. We are blessed with a bread pack of quite a few 30-somethings who studied all over the world. So we'll take them one by one so that you can see what we have in-house. All the best. See you soon.